let's switch gears here and go to our first guest for the show. A Montreal man is suing a Longueuil funeral home and its U.S.-based parent company for allegedly cremating his mother without consent. Stéphane Thalès claims he made it clear that his mother, Edith Jean-Philippe, wanted to be buried and that he was her legal executor. He accuses the funeral home of negligence, pressure tactics, and violating her final wishes. Now, the cremation happened in 2016. The trial is set to begin next February, nearly a decade after her death. Stéphane Thalès now joins us on the line. Stéphane, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you for having me on. Thank you.
So listen, it's not lost on me here. This is nearly a decade after your mother's death. Why the delay? Why the length of time here between the death and this lawsuit?
Well, first of all, when the death and the cremation happened, there is a delay. So after this happened, I had to make sure, okay, I have the funds to begin the lawsuit and everything. So when I filed for the lawsuit, it was at close to 2019, and then there was the COVID delay. And then there were delays inherent into the procedures and everything. And then so now they set the trial date until February 2026.
So what happened with regards to how your mother's remains were treated? Unfortunately, Stéphane, we have this same experience. I've had to bury both of my parents, right? And I've been through that process. And at the funeral home I was dealing with, we were quite clear. They were quite clear. They went through everything. What exactly do you want? So what happened in your case? How did this happen?
Well, it was exactly the same thing. When I arrived there, I opened the contract, and I said it's going to be a burial. And, I'm the legal executor. I provided the notarized will. This was never contested. So we organized the contract. It's going to be a burial. And the only thing was that there could be a delay for things to happen. Because, first of all, I didn't know about what are the delays, for instance, at the notary. There are some administrative delays that we don't know about, that we can't control. So right away I said, well, the funeral could be delayed. So they said, okay, we can keep the corpse there in the meantime. And then all of a sudden, while we were still in the delay, the manager from the funeral home calls me and he says, okay, look, what's going on? So I told him, there's certain roadblocks, but I'm working through them. And then he said, okay, so keep me posted, and then we'll talk about the cremation. So I thought that was a mistake. I said, wait a minute, no, it's a burial. Oh, he said, yeah. So then we made a first appointment. Now he started talking to me about a cremation because it's less expensive. I was like, no, that's not it. The contract says it's a burial. That's what I want. That's what's in the will. That's what we should do. After that, now he started pressuring me to come and sign for a cremation, but still never giving me any reason. So I said, okay, look, I took an appointment with him. He prepared the papers, and I said, I'm refusing this cremation that you're trying to force me to take. And then after that, he continued to harass me. I felt harassed, so then I contacted directly the head office in Houston, because that's the Dignity Memorial. So I said, look, I'm having a problem with a provider here in Quebec. Can you please manage this file? They delegated someone from the Canadian office. I didn't know there was a Canadian office. And it was the same thing when I spoke to the phone with the man. He kept saying, you need to come for a cremation. I never got any reason. I kept saying, look, my mother's will says that. The contract says that. I'm there to say that. And they said, well, we're going to proceed anyways. And if you're not happy, just sue us. And that was it. That's what the end all be all.
This is one thing that struck me when I was reading the story about your case, right? So the funeral home, it's La Maison d'Arche in Longueuil, and
yes.
And I was amazed to find out it's U.S. ownership. Did that make things more difficult that you had to go through the United States?
Well, did it make it more difficult? It was not that was more difficult. It was the person I was dealing with. That was difficult. I didn't know what's going on here with this person. And when I went to the United States, it was kind of straightforward. I wrote to them, and not too long afterwards, they delegated someone from the Canadian office. So it's not really what happened in the United States. It's here in Quebec and in Canada together. I was having this difficulty, and I could not understand why. I told them this is power abuse and a violation of my mother's rights, And we don't have a choice to do business with funeral homes, right? Legally, we have to go through them.
What do you think? What do you think, Stéphane, happened here? Do you think that they made a mistake and then they tried to cover, and again, I don't know what happened. I have no idea. I'm just trying to think. What do you think happened here?
Well, I understand your question. Unfortunately, I can't speculate publicly. So I won't answer. I cannot speculate publicly. So I'll just leave it at that.
So what do you hope this lawsuit will achieve?
Well, first of all, I hope, I'm looking for some kind of acknowledgement that something wrong happened here. I've never had that. Never had that. They keep pushing, no, blah, blah. So that, I'm looking for that. I'm looking for the company to take accountability. I've asked them to look into it, to inquire. And if there was something happen, just, say so we can move. So I hope it achieves that accountability of the company, but also prevent that from any other person. Everybody, we're going to need to go to the funeral home, right? Either for us or for relatives. So we just want to make sure this does not happen, because a funeral is unique. It's a very unique one-time event in some person's life, right? You don't want it botched because, like, the funeral home suddenly decides, like, they take over the case by entitlement or because they have the corpse. That's what I hope does not happen anymore for anyone.
Stéphane, what, for you and your family, what how much grief has it caused that your mother's wishes were not honored?
Look, it complicates everything. Personally, my grief is not finished. Think about it. I took care of her the last 15 months of her life. There were some promises. I want to make sure the funeral is properly handled and everything. That's never been done, so I'm kind of stuck in time. And all the rest of however she wanted me to handle her personal affairs at the end of her life, well, that's been complicated. And first and foremost, the funeral.
And, are you hoping for some sort of resolution before this case gets to trial?
Absolutely. That's why I contacted the company. I said, look, can you look into it? We need to really go to trial for that. To me, there seems to be that the facts are kind of obvious, right? So sometimes it just becomes in the end like a stubbornness of not wanting to admit that something wrong happened, Sometimes it's that.
Yeah. Well, Stéphane, listen, good luck with your case. Sorry about that, how it's affected the grieving process. And I do thank you for coming on to talk about this, something that most of us will have to go through at one point. Appreciate it.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for the interest.
That's no problem, Stéphane. That's Stéphane Thalès. He's a Montrealer suing a funeral home for cremating his mother without consent.